I always thought the scariest sound at night was silence, until I heard the whisper that knew my name. It was late, far later than I should have been on the road. The kind of hour where even the insects stop making noise, and the only thing that keeps you company is the hum of your engine. I was driving down an endless stretch of cracked asphalt. Nothing around me but trees pressing close to the road, their twisted branches clawing at the night sky. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, which startled me because there hadn't been service for miles. I picked it up with one hand, and the screen showed a message I couldn't explain. "We're watching you. Don't stop." I froze, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror. At first it was empty, just the darkness, the faint silver of moonlight catching the treetops. Then, faint but unmistakable, a pair of headlights appeared far behind me. They weren't gaining, they weren't falling back, just keeping the exact same distance. My chest tightened. I pressed the gas, but the headlights matched me. I slowed down. So did they. The silence in my car became unbearable, the hum of the tires louder than it should have been. I thought maybe it was all in my head, that exhaustion was tricking me. But the next message appeared and shattered that thought. "We're closer now. Don't look back." My hands trembled. I forced myself to look straight ahead, but curiosity clawed at me until I peeked into the mirror again. This time the lights seemed closer, but the road behind me was empty. Just those lights, with nothing attached. No car, no outline, no shape. They floated in the dark, glaring at me like eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned into the first place I saw, rusted gas station on the side of the road. The kind that looked abandoned decades ago, except for the flickering sign struggling to stay lit. I pulled up, killed the engine, and for a moment felt relief. But when I looked up, the lights were there too, parked on the road, waiting. Inside, the attendant was a hunched man with sunken eyes, who barely spoke above a whisper. When I asked about the car following me, he refused to look at me and muttered, "Don't go back into the woods. They don't like to be seen." Before I could ask who he meant, the man disappeared into the back, and I realized I was completely alone. My phone buzzed again. The screen flashed white, and words bled across it. "Leave now." Against every instinct, I obeyed. The moment I pulled out, the lights appeared in my mirror again. My heart hammered as I sped faster and faster, but the road stretched endlessly into the night. The trees looked wrong. Their trunks seemed to shift, their shadows bending and stretching unnaturally across the road. Once, I swore I saw a figure standing between the trees, pale and thin, its head tilted at an impossible angle, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. The messages grew stranger, more frantic. "Don't look back. Don't stop. They see you." My chest burned with fear, but ahead in the distance, a light appeared. Not headlights this time, but a warm, golden glow from a cabin nestled at the edge of the forest. I swerved into the graveled driveway, praying for safety. The front door creaked open before I even knocked. Inside stood an old woman, her face lined with deep wrinkles. her eyes too wide. She said nothing at first, just stared at me as if I'd already made a mistake. Then she whispered, "They only hunt those who notice them. Pretend you don't see." My skin crawled because the shadows on her walls were moving, though nothing was casting them. They slithered across the room like living things, stretching into shapes that resembled hands, faces, and long bodies. I backed away, but she gripped my arm with surprising strength. "Don't look at the lights. If you look, they'll follow you forever." I tore away from her and bolted outside. The cabin light flickered and went out, leaving me in suffocating darkness. My car sat in the driveway, but the headlights were already waiting just behind it, impossibly bright. I got in, slammed the door, and tried to drive. But my windows fogged up instantly from the inside, even though the air was cold. Shapes began to press against the glass fingerprints, smears like something unseen was touching me from all sides. Then the whisper returned, clear as if it was sitting in the seat next to me. My own name, spoken slowly, over and over. I lost it. I drove without thinking, turning at every bend, but no matter what direction I went, I ended up back on the same stretch of road through the forest. The trees leaned closer, the road cracked deeper, and every time I glanced into the mirror, more lights appeared. Not just one pair, but 2, 3, 5, until the night behind me was filled with blinding white eyes. The last thing I remember is swerving hard, the tires screaming, and the car crashing into the ditch. I crawled out, coughing, bleeding, my vision swimming. The forest was silent, but then I heard it. Footsteps surrounding me, crunching in the leaves. Dozens of pale figures emerged from the trees, their faces smooth, their eyes black, their mouths curling into impossible smiles. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then I saw the one that made my blood turn to ice. At the front of the crowd, smiling wider than all the others, was my own face staring back at me. The figures circled, closer and closer, their voices blending into one whisper that filled my head. "We told you not to look." The world spun. The forest collapsed into blackness, and the last thing I felt was cold hands dragging me into the dark. So, if you ever find yourself driving alone at night, and you feel like you're being watched, resist the urge to look in the mirror, because if you see them, they'll see you, too. Horror story speech. The reflection sat grinning in the mirror, frozen, while I moved inside the car like a puppet. My hands shifted the wheel. My foot pressed the gas, but I knew none of it belonged to me anymore. The forest peeled away as the road opened into a wide, endless plain, and above me the sky was no longer night, but a ceiling of shifting eyes. Millions of them, blinking in unison, watching every breath I took. The road beneath the tires cracked open, and instead of asphalt I was driving over skulls, their jaws opening and closing in silent screams as the wheels crushed them. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't look away. The radio sparked again, my own voice whispering, "You chose this. You chose us." The sound grew louder until it was all around me, not from the speakers, but from the car itself. The seat vibrating with words, the wheel humming with whispers, the windows fogging up with phrases written backward from the inside. When I leaned closer, I realized they were names, hundreds of them, etched into the glass, scratched in with fingernails. My name was the newest at the bottom. My pulse pounded so loud I thought it would burst my skull. But then the lights ahead revealed another structure. A tower rose out of the plain, impossibly tall, black stone spiraling upward until it vanished into the sky of eyes. The car stopped at its base, though I hadn't braked. The door swung open. I stepped out unwillingly, every muscle trembling, but I couldn't resist. The tower's door was carved from bone and opened at my touch. Inside, stairs spiraled upward into infinity, and with every step I took, whispers echoed louder. The walls bled shadow, dripping like tar, faces pressing against the surface as if trying to push through. Higher and higher I climbed until my legs burned, yet the top never came. My phone buzzed again, glowing white-hot in my pocket. I pulled it out, and across the screen was one message that made my breath stop. Keep climbing or fall forever. I forced myself upward, my chest aching, my throat dry, until finally the stairs ended at a chamber where a single chair waited, facing a massive mirror that filled the entire wall. I sat down, though I didn't want to, my body bending against my will. The mirror flickered and showed me sitting there, but behind me stood hundreds of figures, all of them versions of me torn, twisted, broken, grinning, screaming. They leaned closer in the reflection, though. When I turned my head, the room was empty. Their voices spilled out of the glass in perfect unison, chanting my name until it lost all meaning. Then they stopped, every mouth snapping shut, and the silence that followed was worse than the sound. The version of me in the mirror leaned forward, his grin splitting wider, his skin peeling back to reveal darkness beneath. He whispered, "There was never one of you. There were always many. You're just the last to know." My body went rigid. My reflection reached through the glass, and his hand touched mine. The moment his fingers brushed my skin, everything dissolved. The tower, the plain, the forest, the road gone. I was floating in a black void, surrounded by thousands of faces identical to mine, spinning in a circle, their mouths opening in perfect harmony. They whispered, not words, but a sound, a vibration that made my bones ache, that made my teeth chatter. My vision blurred, my breath faltered, and then I realized with dread that their mouths weren't opening. They were breathing me in. I felt myself thinning, my skin stretching, my body unraveling thread by thread, until I was nothing but another face in the void, staring, smiling, whispering forever. The void spun endlessly until I thought I would vanish into it. Yet suddenly I was standing on the road again, headlights glaring into my eyes, the forest around me breathing like a living creature. My car waited, engine idling, door wide open as if begging me to return. I didn't want to, but my feet moved on their own, dragging me inside. The moment I sat, the seatbelt locked across my chest like a restraint. The dashboard glowed with symbols I didn't recognize, shifting and pulsing like veins. The wheel jerked and the car surged forward, but outside the trees were gone. Instead, I was driving through a tunnel of flesh, walls pulsing with blood, echoes of screams vibrating through the air. Every mile took me deeper, and the whispers no longer tried to hide. They laughed now, a chorus of voices, mocking, welcoming, promising that this was always where I was meant to be. Shapes appeared on the road ahead, crawling things that dragged themselves closer, their faces pale, their mouths torn open in eternal grins. I drove straight through them, their bodies bursting into shadows that clung to the windshield like tar, clawing and smearing until I couldn't see the road at all. My phone buzzed again, glowing in my lap, and this time, instead of words, a video played. It was me, sitting in the car, but not now. Hours earlier, days earlier. My reflection stared into the lens, smiling wider and wider until the skin split at the edges of its mouth, blood dripping down its chin. I hurled the phone aside, but the video played on, the sound spilling into the car. My own voice whispering, "You were warned. You didn't listen." The car lurched violently, and I realized the road had ended. Ahead stretched a vast black ocean, still and endless. The car did not stop. It plunged forward, sinking beneath the surface, the water cold as death, flooding in through the vents, the doors, the cracks in the glass. I thrashed, choking, lungs burning, but the water tasted of ash, thick and foul, filling me until I thought I would drown. Yet I didn't. I could still breathe, though every breath brought more of the black water into me, filling me, changing me. The headlights cut through the abyss and revealed figures floating all around, thousands of them suspended in the dark. Their eyes opened one by one, glowing faintly, and every face was mine. They turned toward me, mouths moving in perfect unison, and their words echoed inside my skull. "You belong to us now." I tried to scream, but bubbles spilled from my mouth, rising slowly to the endless surface above. One of the floating versions swam closer, its face pale and rotted, its eyes black pits. It reached forward, fingers like bone, and pressed its hand against my chest. My heart stopped. For a moment I thought I had died, but then it beat again, slower, heavier, not my own. Something else was inside me, something that had been waiting. The ocean began to drain away, the world twisting, until I was back in the forest, soaked but dry, gasping but silent. The road stretched ahead once more, endless, and the car drove on without me touching it. I glanced into the mirror, and every version of me stared back at once, hundreds of faces overlapping in the glass, their voices whispering the same thing over and over. "This is forever." The forest thickened, shadows crawling across the windshield, pressing their faces against the glass, smiling, tapping, waiting. I knew then that there would be no end. Every mile I drove only carried me deeper. Every whisper hollowed me out, and every reflection pulled me further from myself. I realized with a cold dread that the story would never finish, because I was still in it, still driving, still being watched. And now, as you listen, so are you.